Welcome one and all. It's time for yet another red hot, spicy, sizzling, tender, juicy, moist, succulent, finger licking good Kings of War battle report. Abyssal Dwarves versus Undead 1600 points push scenario. To guide us through this journey, we have two tools at our disposal. We have my face and we have Mr. Arrow. Hello there. Now, those of you who are a little bit observant, you'll notice that bit of a change of scenery going on here. There's no orange background. I'm clearly in a different room. So for anyone that hasn't heard at the tale where I am right now, I'm actually now in Nottingham rather than Manchester. And I'm living right now in the spare room of Annie of Bad Squiddo Games. So right deep in the heart of the industry here. And I'm within striking distance of various wargaming companies, so very exciting times ahead. But obviously relocating at these turbulent times, shall we say, is not the easiest of things. But this battle report, I amassed all the pictures for this before the move, so what that means for the future of battle reports on this channel remains to be seen, but being in the hub of the wargaming universe here in Nottingham, as soon as lockdown restrictions are like fully a thing of the past, then there's definitely going to be ample opportunity for battle reports for multiple game systems, including Kings of War. So, right here we have Abyssal Dwarfs versus Undead. We've already got Wraith 13 and Claude in the chat. Hello there. So, I think it's very exciting. You can actually see the fan rotating in the background because it's incredibly hot right now. But thankfully, I'm not in an attic anymore, so I'm not actually going to melt, in theory. Let's see how it goes. So, Abyssal Dwarves. This is push, so you can see there is a token in the centre. The objective is obviously to take the tokens onto your opponent's half of the table. And I think we actually have 3 tokens each on our units as well at the start of the game. So for this game, I knew this was going to be the last game before the move, so it could have been potentially the last battle report for a few weeks. So I decided let's get all the big juicy stuff out in this game, the new stuff and the exciting spicy models. So I've got right here, we've got the Overmaster on the Ancient Winged Half-Breed, we've got the Hellfane. And then as far as new stuff, over on this side we've also got the Grotesques. But making up the rest of the army, we've got some Lesser Obsidian Golems, we've got Half-Breed Champion, we've got a Horde of Black Souls, we've got 1 Mortar, Heavy Mortar that is, obviously, and a troop of Gargoyles. So go through the setup here. So you'll notice that all of my push tokens are on the Lesser Obsidian Golems, and you might think, well, that's sheer lunacy because now they can't be surged. However, I don't have anyone to surge them anyway, so it doesn't matter. So they're going to very slowly walk towards the opposition, carrying those tokens. So potentially a bit of a risk putting them on such a slow unit that can't move out of the double. And the Gargoyles are hiding directly behind the Grotesques because there are some mild shooting sources in the opponent's forces, and I don't want the Gargoyles to get picked off. In particular, I think there's a bit of lightning bolt action. So, on the Undead side, we've got a troop of Revenant Cavalry, we've got a horde of zombie trolls, we've got a Goreblight, which is quite a nasty, ferocious beastie, we've got a big wall of grindy, horrible, mouldy, zombie festering block. Look at this. 2 regiments, 2 legions, and there are a couple of necromancers here as well. 1 there, and 1 there. One of them at least has Bane Chant, I think. There's a lot of Bane Chant and there's a lot of Surge potential in this army. And over on this side there is an Undead Army Standard Bearer behind the other zombie legion. They're carrying 1 token. This regiment is carrying 2. And over here we've got another troop of Revenant Cavalry and a Vampire on Pegasus. So there's a little bit of shooting from him. I think he has a little bit of lightning bolt action. And on to turn 1, but before we do that, let's just go back to the wide shot and I'll give you my strategy here. So, obviously, I am confident that a lot of my units will be able to stand up to zombie charges, despite the fact that there is Bane Chant available. I've got Defense 6 in these two units here, I've got defense 5 all over the place, so I'm fairly survivable. So as long as I don't get flanked too often by zombies, the legions in the flank could potentially be painful. I think one of them actually hits on 4s as well. I think they've got the item that does that. So if they manage to get into a fight unhindered with Bane Chant on them as well, they can potentially hit quite hard. So the one thing that wouldn't really be worried about that, I would say possibly the Hellfane, because that's got very high nerve. And the Knights are not that hard hitting. Zombie Trolls definitely are. It might be the Zombie Trolls that have +1 to hit, actually. Could be that. The Gore Blight can do some serious damage, especially its ability where it just dishes out 1 wound to units around it regardless at the end of its movement. So it doesn't care what defense you are, it's just going to take a wound off. So very handy against defense 6. And with this scenario, I kind of have to spread out, because otherwise, if I'd put everything down this end, my opponent could have just piled all of his push tokens onto one tiny unit over there, and just sent them into my half and just camped in there for the whole game, and then just contested the middle with this really horrible grind here. Just zombie units, one behind the other maybe, and it would take me so long to chew through them that I wouldn't be able to get any tokens over there. So I had to spread out. We've got, what inspiring have we got? We've got the half-breed champion. He can only inspire the grotesques, and he's not really near them at the moment, but he is poised to go either way. And we've got the overmaster who can inspire anyone, but he's not going to be too close to the rest of my troops anyway. So, I'm hoping to just push up with these guys, pick up that token, and fight through the mess here, and get to the other side. Pretty simple, not really complicated. These units here, keeping the Hellfane near the Black Souls, because, of course, there are benefits to keeping the Hellfane close to your infantry. And see if we can eat through some zombies. I'm also hoping to mortar off some of the bigger threats immediately as well, so any kind of knights or zombie trolls that I can see, or the Gore Blight, I'm going to want to immediately drop shells on them. So let's head for turn 1. So the Undead get the first turn and elect to take it, which could well be wise. With the mortar in town, you want to give it as few shots as possible, and you've also got the opportunity to push the units forward out of its sight in this turn as well. And we've got Bad Squiddo Games in the chat as well. Hello there. I'm sure you're supposed to be working right now. But there's nothing wrong with having some entertainment in the background while working, is there? I'm sure that's what a lot of people are doing at this time of day. Or people who should be working and secretly on their phones watching this red hot, sizzling, spicy battle report, like under the table whenever their boss comes around. I can see people do it. Because where else are you going to get your valuable tactical insight for Kings of War, especially now that it seems like there's going to be more possibilities for in-person games coming up soon. So, Pegasus Vampire and the Knights have both stayed out of range of the Ancient Winged Half-Breed because they're not really a match for it one-on-one. So if I could get a charge off on either one of them, it would probably go quite well. Especially if I could kill these guys, potentially. If I can get a flank on them, they're dead. If I can get a flank on him, he's dead. And in the front, if I charge into one of them in the front, there's always potential that the other one could get into the flank of my unit, which wouldn't be fun. You wouldn't want to get flanked by a Vampire Pegasus. Possibly slightly less scary, these guys, because the Overmaster does have very high nerve. But it's still not ideal. I wouldn't want to charge into the front of one of these with the other one right there staring at the flank in an ideal world. But they haven't given me the opportunity to do that anyway because they're staying out of my charge range. In the middle, all the zombies are just pushing forwards as fast as they can, which is not fast at all. It's actually quite slow. Claude is on a half-day Friday. Tasty. So the Necromancers and the Army Standard Bearer have crept up behind as well, hiding. And the Zombie Trolls have actually gone onto the hill. And the distance they've gone onto the hill, I'm not sure it was actually worth doing this, because now the mortar can see them. If they'd stayed just behind there and not touched the hill at all, then the mortar would have to shoot at some terrible target like zombies, which is just complete waste. So they have got a juicy target next turn now, the Trolls, and what are they gaining from being on the hill there? About an inch. So I'm not sure that was worth it. And not much going on in that turn. And onto Abyssal Dwarf turn 1. You can actually see a bit of damage onto the ancient winged half-breed here. Taken 1 point of damage. I think that was from the lightning bolt from Mr. Flappy Pants himself, the vampire on Pegasus, represented by that rather hideous, I think it's called a bone horror from Reaper. So these are both my armies, by the way, for anyone who's not familiar with this setup I've been doing during lockdown for playing games of Kings of War with a webcam dangling from the ceiling. So obviously my opponents are limited by my model collection. And here, I've pushed forward the Black Souls and the Hellfane. Obviously it's push, so I want to get everyone as far forward as possible, as fast as possible, which isn't ideal for these armies, with a lot of units that need surging to get forward, really. You'll notice the zombies didn't get surged forward last turn, which presumably they didn't want to accidentally leave themselves in range of being flanked by something, because the grotesques have got decent charge range. And my gargoyles here have flown up to block off the knights from charging the grotesques, and also to block off the zombie trolls, but you'll notice they've actually gone, the zombie trolls, right now. So look at this. The mortar, heavy mortar, 2 hits, 9 wounds, and then rolling a 10 on the nerve check, so they're just dead. And I don't think he was inspiring, I think it's the other necromancer that's inspiring, the orange one. That's actually a dwarf playing a necromancer. But that one, not inspiring, so that unit of zombie trolls is just immediately dead. And I'm pretty sure they did have the +1 to hit upgrade as well. So that's quite an expensive unit that just go kaboom the first time the mortar fires. So this flank is looking quite tasty now. Although there's still some decently hard-hitting units here. And the grotesques are fairly safe, unless there's some really long-range surging going on. There are surge options that both of these guys can surge, and there's potential for units to sidestep and get surged forward into them, but they're not going to kill them on their own. They would have needed the trolls as well. So the fact that those zombie trolls have died, the gargoyles must be thinking, did we really need to just leave ourselves here and sacrifice our lives when the unit we were mainly trying to block is now dead? And I needed to box that unit in so the grotesques could actually move forwards. Because if you want to stay out of the charge range of a unit that's almost as fast as you, then you can't actually move forward that far when they've already advanced. So I wanted the option of moving forward further so I can get closer to this sucker here and get closer to the center line so I can push in there with my tokens, which are all on this unit here. So I think that's it. Turn 2, Undead. So these knights have actually turned and offered a flank to the Overmaster, which is quite pleasing to me because now I can just charge that flank and eat them in one go, which means I don't have to worry about being flanked by him, which would be very nice, because if he then charges me in the front, not going to kill him, he's not got enough attacks in the front, so I think I would then win a one-on-one fight with the Peggy, as it's called, vampire on a Pegasus. I think these knights, they needed to be turned that way so that they could sufficiently cover the front of the units that are perched just there. So he was quite happy to give up the flank in order to achieve that angle. So a bit more lightning bolt damage onto the Overmaster, which is going to be a help, especially later if I'm not able to regenerate those wounds. So this zombie regiment with the tokens was actually set up to walk straight towards this house, which on the one hand keeps them safe from attack, but on the other hand it's going to make it more difficult for them to get into my half with the tokens, which is of course the aim of the game here. This legion has 1 though. Everything else pushing up. Gargoyles obviously get eaten alive because they're gargoyles. They take 6 wounds there, as you can see, and they are just toast immediately from the knights, represented by wolves here. And the Goreblight here is actually peeking just over the hill, which is another incident of a unit just touching the hill, maybe unnecessarily, which means they could open themselves up to being a target for the mortar next turn. Gargoyle's dead, and that's it for the turn. So what am I going to do now? The grotesques can charge the knights if they want, but whatever I do after that, I'm leaving myself open to something, because all these units over here can be surged. There are 2 necromancers, so if I attack at all, then I'm going to leave my flank open to something. So does that bother me? Do I just say, okay, I'm already up on this side, I've taken out the zombie trolls, do I go for the knights next and then accept that maybe these guys could get killed? I've got him, who could maybe inspire them as well, which would make them a bit more survivable. Got Radbat in the chat as well, hello there. Picking up some red hot sizzling tactical advice here, no doubt. And on to turn 2 for the Abyssal Dwarves. So, I charge into the flank of the Revenant Knights, the troop of them. Only do 9 damage in the flank, so it was a little bit of a risky move because if I didn't successfully kill them, I would have been flanked by Peggy and then countercharged by the knights in the front, which, with the damage already inflicted by the lightning bolts, could have actually been enough to toast this bad boy. But as it is, knights are dead, and then I can turn to avoid the Peggy flank and still be kind of looking towards the centre a little bit as well. And here, the Hellfane and the Black Souls have just pushed forwards towards the zombies. I don't care if I get charged by them because they're zombies. What are they going to do, really? And if they charge into this horde of Black Souls, then really all they're doing is opening up their flank to the Hellfane, which would be a terrible move because it doesn't have that many attacks in the front. But if you give it a flank, then that is where you get eaten by the flaming lava rhino of doom. And the Hellfane actually shoots its pistols as well and does a bit of damage onto these zombies, which is nice. And there may actually be a throwing mastiff involved here as well. I can't remember if I took one. It was a couple of weeks ago, this game. Just getting around to doing the battle report now. I've got to spread out this video content. Mortar fires, put some damage onto the zombie legion. See the necromancer behind them there, who's actually just an orange dwarf wizard. And the grotesques decide they are going to charge into the knights and kill them quite handily. And the grotesque champion, not grotesque champion, the half-breed champion goes for the Goreblight there. And I think he's just parked in front of it. I don't think he actually charges it. I think he just wants to... I think this guy is mighty, so he's not just going to be able to ignore me and just charge straight through me to get something. I'm not sure what my planning was there exactly. Maybe it's to block multi-charges from like these units coming in here. So what is open though is this unit can be flanked potentially into this, surged into the flank here. The Goreblight can obviously charge in there. The Goreblight, I don't think it could really get the flank of these guys without some serious shenanigans because it's facing that way. It's not going to have a chance to pivot except directly in that direction. Maybe that's why he's here actually, because it prevents this guy from being able to get himself surged into this unit, which could potentially end up in the flank. I don't think if he goes sideways, he could go far enough to get their flank. So that may be part of the thinking as well. So this unit is obviously just pushing up towards the token in the middle, and obviously that's where the centre line is. So in push, you don't score any points for holding the objectives unless the unit holding them is entirely within the opponent's half. I think that's right. So, turn 3. And Peggy the Vampire decides not to charge into the Overmaster. Which is, actually I think in push it's, is it 1 point and 2 if it's in the opponent's half? I don't remember. No, I've got the Kings of War rulebook right here, I could just look at it. Let's see. Where is that bad boy? Of course it would be right at the bottom of the pile, wouldn't it? On this nice new snazzy bookshelf that I've got. I've got all my wargaming books right to hand now, which is nice. And got to get factually correct in these videos though, haven't you? Because there are so many scenarios that involve tokens now that it's easy to lose track. I don't think it changed in the new edition. Let's see, just to make sure. So push, yeah, it is. Yeah, so my instinct, my second instinct was correct. It's 1 victory point if you hold the token, and 2 if you're entirely on the opponent's half. So, here we go. Peggy decides not to engage here and just jumps over my lines, so it's safe from being charged because I haven't got any kind of surge options over there. And it's just staring into my flank of various units now, so I'm going to have to push everything into combat and then kill things and then turn to face Peggy or get recharged, which would be bad. But I'm kind of glad that it's facing that way rather than that way, because I don't want to spend the whole game chasing this cheaper flyer around with my more expensive flyer. So the fact that it's not threatening the Overmaster pleases me. Pleases me greatly. Zombies decide not to engage the Black Souls because that would be just suicide, because they would immediately get flanked by the Hellfane and killed. However, that would mean that they get this token further onto my half, which is something also to consider. These zombies actually move away, I think. They don't want to get charged by my lesser obsidian golems because they're carrying some really tasty, valuable tokenage. Yeah, they've got 2. My golems have got 3. If I charge them and kill them and end up on that side carrying 5 tokens, that's a win-win situation for me. And I don't see any coming back from the undead if I get into that position. So probably wise to back off a bit. Over on this side, the grotesques do actually get killed, with the Gorblight charging them and then a flank charge from the zombies, assisted with a bit of surging, and they get Bane chanted as well, I think. So grotesques are dead after taking all that damage. Despite the fact they're inspired, it didn't help them, because they took so much. These zombies charge into the half-breed champion and do 3 wounds. And the way this is set up now, I can't just advance these guys up and go for this unit, because I would be leaving myself open to flank and rear charge, even if I end up out of the range of that unit. I really don't want to be there anyway, because there's a couple of surge casters around here, and I can only attack one of them next turn with the half-breed champion. So what I'm going to do is pick up that token, move on to it, and then turn to face this unit, because I don't care if I get flanked by a zombie regiment. What's that going to do against a defense 6 unwaverable wall of stone? So for my turn 3, okay, actually let's go back to, is there a good image showing this? In fact, kind of. So I'm going to have to move myself out of the way down here. So, trying to select Mr. Arrow again, but it's not cooperating. Gosh darn it, there we go. So, look here, this zombie legion has taken a bit of damage, 5, which was from I think it was from the Helfane's pistols throwing mastiffs. So it's on 5 damage already. I've got 3 units that could charge that thing in the front. I've got the Horde of Black Souls, I've got the Helfane, and I've got the Overmaster. Now, the Overmaster and the Helfane don't have that many attacks, but each one is almost guaranteed to wound. So if I think they hit out of about 9 attacks, I'd expect to do 7 or 8 wounds to the zombies with each one of those, which would put them pretty high already, and then whatever the Black Souls can do would push them over the edge, I think. So I should be able to kill them with the damage they've got on and the triple charge in the front. But if I fail, then I'm leaving multiple units with their rears exposed to Peggy the Vampire, which would be a terrible idea. So I think the odds are in my favour there, so I'm going to triple charge that unit and try and kill it and take the chance. So as you can see, it comes off, and Helfane and the Black Souls turn back around again so they don't get rear charged by Peggy. And then the Overmaster doesn't need to, because the Pegasus Vampire cannot see the Overmaster at the moment, outside of its arc of sight. So if Peggy had turned a little bit more this way, I would have had to turn all 3 units round, which would have really cramped my style. And also, I'm not worried one bit about exposing the rear of the Helfane or the Black Souls to a rear surge from this unit. First of all, they would have to drop their tokens if they want to get surged, which would be fine by me, and that would get them to the Helfane. If they want to charge this unit, they might be able to see this unit without a surge and get in there. Can they? I'm not sure, actually. I don't know whether I checked, but I wouldn't have been concerned by that anyway. A rear charge from a zombie regiment wouldn't kill this unit, most likely. With Pegasus Vampire in the front as well, still probably not, I would say, in 1 round. And that would just leave this unit in prime position to be countercharged. And this unit wants to stay safe, really, because they've got 2 juicy tokens. The Helfane takes the token from the zombie legion that was here, that was carrying it, so I've got 1 token in the opposition half now. So, dead, look at all that damage. A zillion wounds dished out. The mortar, what does Morty the Mortar do this time? 7 wounds onto the Gorblight, which I think is actually facing this way right now. And you can see this is actually helping it balance, because this hill is not the best. And this model isn't the most balanced, because that is, I think that's Reaper Bones, that giant worm, and then it's got a metal guy on it leaning over the front, so it's very front heavy. But I think he's actually supposed to be facing this way right. So, I managed to waver one of the Necromancers with the half-breed champion, which is nice, because that's going to stop him from doing anything next turn. And I would have liked to have killed him, though. It means I'm going to have to spend another turn harassing him. So I pick up the token with the lesser obsidian golems, and they turn to face the zombie legion there. Zombie legion in the front. They are not actually on the hill, this unit here. So we actually went back and checked, because in the game, my opponent declared that charge, and then we thought, oh, actually, were they on the hill? So we had to go back into my camera and check the picture. And we looked at the shape of the hill and determined that they were probably about 1/3 on the hill, based on the shape of it. So they're not considered on the hill, so they're not going to get a thunderous charge bonus when they go into this unit, which is handy. But the Goreblight will. But I've got 4 tokens on that unit now. They are currently in my half, though, mostly. And look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm carrying a lot of tokens right now, 5 to be precise. And my opponent is carrying 2, but this unit is about to be attacked. Turn 4. So Peggy the Vampire decides to kill off the mortar before it can do any more damage. Probably a good move, because that mortar was causing some serious havoc. However, if Peggy the Vampire had failed to kill the mortar in one round, or double wand it, for example, that would have been probably game over, because this guy is essential if the Undead are going to win the game, I think. Double charge, Zombie Legion, and Goreblight into Obsidian Golems. 7 wounds. Not going to be enough to kill them this time. This zombie regiment turns around, so they're not going to get flanked or anything. And because Peggy the Vampire has run away or flapped away, these 2 units are now looking at nobody. So imagine if this guy had had to turn to face Peggy as well. Would have had 3 units just totally out of the game now. Zombies attack the half-breed champion again. He's regenerating his wounds though, so he's going to be fine against that regiment. And that is the turn. So turn 4. And Overmaster into the front of the zombies, carrying 2 of the tokens. It would be nice if I could take them out in one round, but unfortunately no. 7 wounds and they survive. Which means that this guy is still tied up and can't help out in the middle, where he might actually be needed soon. Mr. Flappy himself. Hellfane moves up in this direction, carrying 1 of the tokens, and then fires its pistols at the army standard bearer and does just a couple of points of damage there. Black Souls are heading round the outside of the house though, towards, this is my golem unit here, heading in this direction, because if those golems die, I'll need someone in the vicinity to pick up those tokens or kill the unit that steals them. And the centre of the table is about here. So if those zombies charge me right now, I think they would potentially be maybe in my half, I'm not sure. Because this guy's here. So I think he charged into the Goreblight there. Those guys went into the front. So a double kill, double charge kills the Goreblight. The zombies are still alive. I've prioritised that thing because it hits hard. And I thought, that's one thing I can actually take out in one round. I won't kill the zombies in one round, and all it'll do is get me flanked by the Goreblight. So, get that out of the way, kill another unit that can potentially carry tokens, and then we'll deal with the Legion later. Romance are chilling out there. So, the game's going by pretty quick now, because a lot of units are dying, and a lot of other units are tied up in. So there's how it looks. This guy still isn't in charge range. I might have actually offered him a frontal charge on the Black Souls here. Because if he wants to take that, I don't mind at all, because he's going to be really annoying if he can get towards these guys and kill them, maybe. Turn 5 for the Undead. So, Zombie Legion goes in here. I think the centre of the table is actually there now. So, if the zombies kill this unit and steal the tokens this turn, they could potentially pivot on the spot and end up fully in my half. Which would be bad news, because that would be 4 tokens in my half then, and I think I've got 3 in my opponent's half when I kill that zombie regiment shortly. Zombie regiment here charges into the half-breed champion again. Got a few people watching right now. Very nice, considering I didn't really announce this in advance. I wasn't even sure whether I was going to do this, you know, because of the terrible heat. But I think I can sufficiently concentrate with my legendary tactical acumen. Doesn't require all my brain power. Brain needs a little bit of like temperature, body temperature regulation powers. So this guy, I think he throws a lightning bolt at the champion as well, and then they were surged into combat. I think that's what happened. So that's why he took a little bit of damage there. Oh, by the way, for anyone who has ever been interested in supporting this channel on Patreon, now would be an excellent time to do that. Obviously, with relocating halfway across the country in uncertain and unprecedented turbulent times, then now would be an excellent moment if you wanted to do that. And I've changed the Patreon page as well, so at a certain level there are some digital bonuses associated with it as well, for anyone that's interested in that kind of. What those bonuses will entail, other than just music from the Andy and Rem show, remains to be seen, but there will be something at some point. And of course there is the perk of people getting their name mentioned at the end of the video as well. Oh, by the way, for anyone that watched the Andy and Rem show and saw the internet issues, I think I've got those figured out now. So hopefully this stream is going without a hitch. It looks like it. It says excellent connection with a green dot, so it should be fine. Hopefully I've got that all figured out, which bodes well for next week's show. So, the zombies countercharge into Mr. Flappy Boy here, and 4 wounds on him now, which isn't enough to worry such a big beastie. And not much goes on there at all. So you can see that the golems got themselves up to 10 wounds from the zombies, which would have meant that a roll of 7 would have killed them. And there's no one in inspiring range. I think they only got 6. So I took a bit of a risk leaving the tokens on this unit as long as I did here, but it's worked for now. But they're so wounded, and this guy's staring right into their flank, that I need to get the tokens off them now. So, turn 5 for me. And the Hellfane and the Overmaster kill the zombie regiment. The Hellfane's actually facing this way, but because of the big pointy bits on it, Mantic making gigantic models that don't fit on the bases, then he doesn't actually fit next to the Overmaster facing forward, so I had to turn him backwards to slot him in there. And here I've dropped the tokens before the countercharge. So all the tokens were dropped under the base, part under the base, which is there. So if we go back, see that the bit of the base there, that's where I'm going to drop the tokens, and then when I countercharge I'll slide to the center. So what this is going to achieve, so the fact that I've been able to drop the tokens there, they are actually slightly on my opponent's half. Like, I think the center line is about there. So if I ultimately get killed by these zombies and overrun, that'd be the only way they could pick up the tokens now, because they can't steal them off because I'm no longer holding them. So if they overrun and pick them up, that means they're not pivoting, which means that they are not going to be fully in my half of the table, which means that they wouldn't then be able to claim double points for them at the end of turn 6 if the game ends there. So that's something you always have to consider. If a unit's about to die, where are they? Where can they drop the tokens? Is it beneficial to do so? The only way they could have directly put themselves on my half with the tokens next turn is if they stole them from me. So dropping them prevents that from happening. And here, these guys are really just saying, would you like to charge us, Mr. Pegasus? If you're an idiot, then feel free to do it. They're also putting themselves in a position where they can see the zombie horde, the zombie legion, in case I'm needing them to get in there and fight shortly. So, I've got back up here, and I've got another turn left. So these 2 units will be able to help out in the middle as well. So I'm quite confident now that I was able to drop those tokens. It's going to be difficult for the Undead to pick those up and get into my half. Turn 6 for the Undead. So the golems do get killed, but the zombies, after it's pointed out that if they pick up the tokens, they're not going to be in my half. So it's not going to do them any good to do that, because they'll be holding tokens and then they'll immediately die and have them stolen next turn by me, because they're already heavily wounded, this legion. Then they decide they're not going to overrun at all, they're going to stay there. Peggy did charge into the flank as well and finish them off. And that's pretty much it for that turn. There's not much else going on there. The necromancers just do their bane chanting shenanigans. The zombie regiment are trying to kill the half-breed champion again, but he keeps regenerating the small amount of wounds that they're doing to him. Turn 6 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So if it ends at turn 6, then I'm just going to win now. because these are on the ground and the Hellfane is holding 3 tokens, I think. So the only way my opponent could win is picking up the tokens and then being entirely in my half with them, which seems very unlikely, even if there's a turn 7 now. It would require, let's see, if this unit, could they even touch them and then pivot, because the house would be in the way? I don't even know if that would be possible. So it's looking very unlikely that I could lose this one now unless the Hellfane somehow gets killed. Turn 6, the Abyssal Dwarves. So a flank charge on Peggy the Vampire. 8 wounds and a waver, which basically wraps up the game there, because even if there's a turn 7 now, what are they really going to do without Peggy? The Zombie Legion is annihilated by the Overmaster, and the Hellfane just lands on top of the tokens and picks them all up. The Hellfane is carrying all the tokens on my opponent's half, because I think the centre line is about here. And looking very, very healthy indeed there, holding all the tokens. But we do get a turn 7, so if the Hellfane dies, that could change things a little bit. It would require an obscene dice roll to do that. So at turn 7, the Zombie Regiment goes into the Hellfane. I assume they have Bane Chant launched on them. And is that going to do anything though? No. Obviously. Defense 6. Got Obscene Nerve. I do really love this Hellfane model, by the way. I haven't actually unpacked it yet. I hope it didn't get destroyed. I did wrap it in like a ton of bubble wrap though, so it should be fine. Turn 7 for me, so Peggy is dead. Just mopping up now. Zombie Regiment dead. The guy that was hanging around here, was it a Standard Bearer or was it a Necromancer? There's someone hanging around there, but I think he's dead as well. And that's that. So there's a Necromancer left on the table, and I'm not even sure if there's a Standard Bearer. If there is, I can't see him. So I've got all the tokens, all of them in my opponent's half. That's a zillion points to me, 0 points to the Undead, and it is a win for the Abyssal Dwarves, obviously, with a scoreline like that. So very, very tasty final game before the move, and remains to be seen where my next games will take place. There are quite a lot of people around here playing Kings of War, obviously, because it's not obscenely far from Mantic headquarters. I'm pretty close relatively to lots of the different wargaming companies now, so see what comes of that. And I know that Mantic, at least before lockdown, they were doing a weekly game night, at least weekly as far as I know. So once that's back up and running again, I'll definitely be able to get down to that quite easily and get more games in. And oh, we've got Steve in the chat as well, who says it was a fun game. Yes, Steve was my opponent for this game, and I can't remember what happened in the other game we had. I don't think I won that one. Was that a draw, the other one we had, or did you just win that one? I don't even remember which faction I was using now. But anyway, it was a nice way to end the era of the Attic Gaming Centre, as I had there. And we'll see where the next game happens and who my opponent is now that I'm in this new location. As far as what I can actually play like in this house game-wise, then there's anything that's small, there's potential for things like that. I could play something like Dead Zone, maybe set up a webcam for that, maybe. Especially if there's another lockdown, if there's like a second, even deadlier wave of the virus hitting at some point in the future, and I can't go out for any gaming, then webcam Dead Zone is something that could happen. Maybe Dreadball as well. I did see there's a computer Dreadball tournament going on at some point, which I think I saved a Facebook post looking at it, because it did seem quite interesting. Obviously board games like that are very easy to translate into digital medium, so that's something I'm going to look into as well for Dreadball. It's quite fun. Steve says, oh yeah, you did win against the goblins, didn't you, previously? So yes, Abyssal Dwarves versus Undead. Abyssal Dwarves reign supreme. A lot of the big juicy models got their final voyage before the move, and I think with that Mr. Arrow can disappear, and I can disappear as well, and you just look at this beautiful episode thumbnail, all its Photoshop glory. Very fiery, very red hot, sizzling, spicy, tender, succulent, moist, finger licking good, dishlicious content. And don't forget to check out all the links in the description. Obviously there's various social media shenanigans going on down there. Steve says, my poor zombie trolls. Yeah, the poor guys. Well, that's what happens if you put someone in range of a mortar in turn 1. Rookie mistake there from the zombie trolls. So, check out my Facebook group if you want to see what's going on, if you want to post anything relevant to my content on there as well. There's Twitter. And I may put a link in there to the Andy and Rem Show Discord server as well. Because, obviously, post things in there that are relevant to War as well, I'm sure. And there's all different sections for different kinds of discussions, so I'll probably stick that in the description as well, because that's a hub of activity at the moment, especially in these times where some people are still rather isolated on all the access to communities that you can via online platforms. Also, fundraising links down there, including Patreon, which now has extra levels of juiciness with some bonuses if you pledge at certain points. And, of course, very welcome at the moment in these turbulent times. Uprooting, moving halfway across the country. Every little is going to help at the moment. And, in fact, let's give out the thanks as well. So, obviously, thanks to all the patrons, but especially Kim, Brad, Eric, Steve, Bob, Guy, and Graham. Especially those patrons. And with that, I believe all that remains to be said, other than to keep your eyes peeled for more content very soon, is good afternoon out there, whatever you are.